Making SWC would just be the dream.
It would be probably one of the greatest achievements that I'll ever have in my life.
I mean, it's an amazing feeling playing in front of a big crowd.
To get to SWC would mean everything. It's great.
Yeah, like I'm gonna make a team. I'm gonna find a way to get there, no matter what it takes.
It's just like the best feeling in the world, I think.
We're gonna make SWC because we're the best.
Making the SWC this year would mean everything to us.
This year is my year.
This year is my year.
This year's my year.
This year is my year.
This year is my year.
All right, calm down, Dignitas. You've not proved it so far, I'll tell you that much. Anyway, tickets are still on sale for the SWC, guys. You guys can go as well. hi-rezexpo.com. And obviously, if you use the exclusive 25% off group -A, make sure you put the dash in there, you will get 25% off your tickets and come along and potentially see some of those players joining us. And talking about joining us, we do have Nika joining us from Team Sanguine, the solo laner, who had a pretty good performance today.
Not bad.
Yeah, you got a nosebleed after the performance so far from you boys beating Dignitas?
No, expected.
Expected so far? Well, we do have another matchup for you here, and obviously with the standings as they are now, everything is still to play for between these teams. Trixtank on the side of Orbit, very, very important for them. Had a good showing so far, Taco. What are we expecting to see out of him?
Trixtank against eLevate, I think that they're going to be a little bit more hesitant as far as the early game map control is oriented, because they saw eLevate against Sanguine earlier today. They saw that eLevate's running more of that, I wouldn't say passive playstyle, but they are trying to control the pacing of the game a bit better than what they did yesterday. And so I think Orbit are definitely going to try and feel them out first. So Trix will most likely be looking to play something that's a little bit more team-oriented rather than just full-on aggression.
It's a very good point, and Trixtank known for his aggression, as is your player Murder there, Nika, as well. I mean, they've got similar play styles, those two, although Murder will sit back nowadays and play a little bit more defensive, and Trix has been doing it as well. Well, let's have a little look at Trix and see what he's been doing so far this competition.
Trixtank shouts a lot.
Trixtank's just a goofball. You know, he's always trolling me IRL. Like, he's always telling me he's gonna first blood me.
All their team are very good. Like, they play together since 2 years now.
Yeah, he's a really good guy, but his gameplay is shit.
Sometimes he needs to ask you what scaling really means, but overall his shot calling is what's helping the team succeed. And he's the aggressive support that really fits with our play style, so he does really well in that regard.
I have to go to Trixtank every single game. Always beats.
Trix is one of my favorite people on the team, honestly. Even though there's obviously there's some stuff in game where we might not agree on, but Trix is like a brother to me.
Great character, isn't he? Like, just obnoxious, loud. He tries to annoy you in comms, and he's just got so much motivation and drive that it's impossible to fail under him.
Trixtank, the core of their team. Without him, I think they are lost.
Well, that support player there, Trixtank, is going to be up against Jermain here, and he's having a wonderful tournament right now. Jermain, born in Germany, raised in France, and representing the French as well. We saw a pentakill earlier on today from this young man.
Jermain, again, this guy is just an absolute troll. Just the definition of troll. But to be fair, you've got to give it to him. He's got great mechanics in lane. He's actually one of the people, when I'm laning versus him, I think it's actually quite difficult to kind of get the advantage on him to get a kill. He's just very solid, and yeah, nice guy.
Jermain, quite a troll, but that's the job.
I don't want to do objectives whilst he's alive, ever. He just steals them all the time. He's like the new Renz.
Jermain. Him and Dardez are just such an iconic duo, man. Even if they're not the best, they have so much drama they can create with their picks and their clapping, taunting.
He's very high up in the ranking standings right now. So a great mechanical player.
Him and Dardez, the Blues Brothers, the Trolls. I think he's one of the best EU ADCs right now. I think he may be on the top above everyone else, honestly.
Now, coming off the back of that one as well, Nika, I just want you to elaborate a little bit more. You said, you know, they bring a lot to this team in terms of their picks, but also their play style. How does that impact games that they're in?
You always have to be cautious around Jermain and Dardez because they're probably the most aggressive duo lane in the SPL, I'd say. They're always looking to fight. They're always drafting these aggressive comps, so you have to make sure you have jungle pressure to like counter gank or support your duo lane because they're usually going to be pinned back under tower.
Well, in this game, they're going to be up against Trixtank and Funballer, a very established team here, Taco. Are we expecting fireworks in the duo lane here?
I would say definitely expect fireworks in this duo lane. The other thing that I'm aware of too is that Orbit does regard eLevate's duo lane pretty highly. In fact, I think that they're going to be very conscious about how they choose to play out this like early game into the mid game because they know that if they give an inch to this eLevate duo lane of Jermain, they'll take a mile for sure.
Indeed, and with this as well, Nika, we see the bans coming through. Do we expect to see real focus on the duo lane here, or is it going to be other lanes that are more important?
I mean, the only focus you can really throw out onto Jermain would be Rama. That's like his main pick, his strongest pick. He'll carry any game with that.
We saw his Jing way early on, and a great game on that too.
Yeah, it's solo dark kill. Not too good, but...
Not too good? What do you mean not too good? It is good to solo arc kill, right? Oh yeah, for your team, maybe. Come on.
But Jermain's god pool's too big. Like, he'll play Shablanca if he has to. Like, he can go all the way down the list.
We're going to see Sobek picked up early on. Now, we actually saw this out of Dardez earlier on in the tournament too.
Sobek. It's something he loves to run, like, constantly, super aggressive.
And it seemed to work out very well for him as well.
Yeah, we banned it out. It's too dangerous. You can't mess with that.
And that's the thing about land meta as well here, Taco, is that as you play against these teams over and over again, a land meta appears that you wouldn't normally see in your normal SPL game or even your rank play as well. You actually end up just focusing out the enemy team.
Yeah, one thing to really note here is Orbit went ahead. They made sure to take Yanis away from nulisa. They did not want to give her something that she, you know, showed earlier today that she's very comfortable on, very capable of following up her team with and getting them out of dangerous situations. And I gotta say, I'm a little surprised by that Khepri pick coming out of Trixtank into a Sobek.
Very early that one, Nika, on the Khepri pick. Was there any reason to pick that there, do you think, or is it okay?
I mean, it's early, but Khepri's super strong. If you play around them correctly, it's impossible to lose your carry in a late game team fight.
It's a good point.
You have to separate yourself from him, and then it's an easy revive.
He does bring good wave clear to the situation in the duo lane, yeah. And obviously it makes it a little bit less likely that Sobek can find a pluck. Although you're going to be under the tower, which is always a threat you don't want to do against Sobek.
Yeah, but that's the other thing, too, to take note of is that Dardez, we've seen, he likes that Blink Sobek.
That's true.
So it's not really something that Orbit are really going to be able to necessarily expect every single time when he's going to want to engage and go in. And picking Rama to complement that Sobek, they definitely are looking for that early lane aggression.
Well, we didn't see the Rama ban, like you said. You know, you expected not to just for other things here, Nika. And it will be the Isis locked in for eLevate as well. So nulisa's gone to the Isis here after the Giannis. Was that an expected thing from you?
I mean, she's very confident in Isis. Their core here is incredible. They're all on super comfort picks. At the moment, those three are really high-level picks, and Isis is probably the strongest mage, I'd say, at the moment.
Okay, for what reason?
High damage, best objective secure, CC is ridiculous. The Spirit Ball, the Silence, she has protection debuff. What more could you want?
That's true. Well, one thing we've not seen too much of this tournament has been Susano, although QvoFred will go back to it. We saw it a little bit earlier on day one, but back to it goes Qvo here.
Yeah, Qvo is definitely confident on that Susano pick, and I think it's going to complement the Raijin really well. Although it was, I think, smart by nulisa to opt for that Isis pick, considering that Orbit have that Raijin, so they're going to have that early lane pressure control, and so I think the Isis is a good way to counteract that, and that she won't let him completely dominate the mid lane.
Well, we talk about the trio synergy for eLevate here in the mid lane especially, and the jungler WorldEdit needs to pick something up for himself. Nika, where are you expecting him to go, especially with Aokwang, Ratatoska, and also Hunbat's banned out?
Probably Thor. It's his
first
go-to pick, I'd say. And with Rat and AO banned, he doesn't really have many options.
Kind of makes sense, obviously, with an Isis as well here, Taco. Very, very strong composition of the Thor Isis. Very classic as well.
I wouldn't be surprised to see even a potential Najah pick coming out, though, for WorldEdit. And it's not something that we've seen him play too much of recently, but it's definitely still a pick that's on the table for him. I know that it's something that he knows how to play pretty proficiently, and I think it would actually complement the Isis pretty well.
And it also stops Khepri from able to get ultimates off a little bit here, Nika, but there's no real setup on landing as much as you've seen before.
I mean, You could use Isis Spirit Ball to land into, but that's
Ooh.
such a huge AoE team fight ultimate. You don't really want to be using that as a single target.
Confirmation's a little bit hard as well on that, isn't it? I mean, Jing is being looked at here for Funballer. We said Funballer is very aggressive, and seeing Funball versus Jermain should be fireworks in this duo lane here, and especially with those two gods.
I think it was a really smart decision by Funballer to pick up that Jing, especially considering that eLevate had that Sobek pick, so that's going to help him as far as survivability in that duo lane is concerned, because you know that eLevate are going to want to, especially with that Ymir coming out.
Do that again,
Gentle Ymir.
Do that again.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm genuinely surprised. I really enjoy if that Ymir goes through, that is okay.
Well, I don't know. Do you really think it's a jiffy pick?
Yeah, I've seen him do it a lot.
Okay, it's just because the Erlang Shen has also been something he's gone to, and we've seen MoGoW do it as well.
MoGoW loves Erlang. He's probably the only solo laner who would always pick Erlang if it's open.
I mean, to be fair,
I don't understand why.
It seems
I think it's awful.
For what reason do you think it's so bad?
I mean, he bullies you in lane, but he's like the easiest solo laner to kill.
Okay.
He's just bad.
Well,
his CC is bad.
Looking at Jing 10 here, and they will lock that in as well for the solo lane. So double Guardian versus double Guardian. We've seen this in the old school days. It's back again, Nika. And to be fair, you're one of the teams that started this off this weekend.
I feel like we've brought Khepri back. Everyone's looking into it.
Yeah, thanks for that. All those revives.
Yeah, Guardians are just the strongest class in the solo lane, and even in the jungle. They offer more damage, more CC, they're tankier. It's just everything you need.
Well, when we look through these two compositions here, take away the teams in this one, Taco. I want your opinion first. On paper, pick some bands. Who do you think is going to win game one?
Honestly, on paper, I'd have to give it to Orbit.
Orbit. What about you, Nika?
eLevate.
eLevate for the draft?
Yeah,
what
definitely.
reason?
Their objective secure's crazy. They have zoning abilities. They have control with the Ymir, Sobek. You have to be so cautious against their comp. And Rama's like up there with Shablanka as the top late game carry.
Well, let's find out exactly how this one goes. The casters are ready to bring it. Taco says one team, Nika says the other. What do you guys at home think? Tom, tell us all about the game.
When it really comes down to it, folks, I'm not really sure who's going to wind up in the solo or the jungle. We're looking at the Erlang, Shen, and the Ymir. I think it's a toss-up for eLevate.
It's both really synergetic with the Isis. You can get the Ymir freeze and the wall, which will set up the Isis in mid lane, or you can get the root cripple javelin toss coming out of the Erlang Shen, and a really great initiation with his ultimate, as well as the turtle, providing him enough health to really absorb a lot of these abilities to allow Isis to get away safely.
I think it's more likely we see Erlang, Shen in the jungle. However, I am completely wrong. It will be MoGoW on the newer god, and the old god Ymir will be there on WorldEdit.
He really likes to play aggressive MoGoW in the solo lane, so putting him on this Erlang Shen allows him to really control the laning phase early on, especially against a Xing Chen Guardian early on who struggles really heavily. I wouldn't be surprised here if we were to see an invade potentially coming out of the squad of eLevate right now.
So we'll see where WorldEdit and MoGoW really opt to go, but take a look at those relics right away. Out of the jungle, Ymir winds up with the shell. Talk to me about that one.
It's really surprising that he opted for the shell, meaning more team fight relic potentially. Now, you're not going to be aggressive to the point where you're going to invade with this shell. Normally, you would want to get either Curse or you would want to get a Wrath for the potential steal. So that means that they're more inclined about taking these team fights, and because the Ymir is so immobile, Shell's going to keep him alive.
Well, when it comes down to relics and actives, you really got to think about the unit, the team as a whole, as a giant unit. And what it comes down to, I think, is going to be looking at that Ymir, but more importantly, the Sobek. Dardez started the game off with a meditation, and we all know, I think even Taco touched upon it on the analyst desk, the blink is what Dardez really wants to build. Well, if you have the meditation to start the game off, and then you're going to go blink, someone's got to get the shell. So Ymir starting off with that early, it's a nice little change of pace, and it's going to allow the team as a unit to really have access to everything they want to get.
There could be a potential surprise play with the blink onto Dardez and the blink also onto WorldEdit to get those level 12 surprise initiations for the squadron of eLevate. And that could be something that they're relying on, but that's going to hurt their early game, I would say. Not having the purification means that this WorldEdit, he's going to be a sitting duck.
I mean, you say that, but then again, of course, Ymir is naturally tanky just a little bit, and I certainly think we're going to see the tanky build come out of Ymir. I doubt we're going to see do more many times soon, so I think that'll, maybe his natural protections and his build will help him out in that regard. But as it goes on, I'm really happy and really high up on this draft out of the team, out of the guys on eLevate. I think that there's a lot of thought process being brought into it, and honestly, eLevate versus versus Orbit. This is as drastic as the matchup can get as far as different potentials, but very interested to see how eLevate's going to go ahead.
And right now, it's going to be very momentum-based between these sides. Sanguine has a 2-0 victory over their last set, whereas Dignitas, they're coming off a split.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options for these guys. Like we said, eLevate, they have a fantastic draft, but Orbit, they certainly have the individual prowess, and they've got the Susano. So a lot of things on both sides of the coin. In fact, I need a little bit more help, so I'm going to toss it over to the analyst to give it the breakdown. It's Nika, it's Taco, and it's that other guy, Hindu Man. Why don't you tell us how?
Thanks, Tom. Love for that. Obviously, we get to come back to the cast for a second or two, though, just to look over things. And Nika, you were saying, just as we got off air, about this solo matchup. So talk a little bit more here, because you said the way Xaliea played Jing 10 wasn't right in your eyes.
Yeah, so the first time these two teams played on day one, Xaliea spent a lot of the time in lane rather than in team fights, which is a huge misplay since Jing Chen is like prominent in team fights. He's all about disrupting the enemies. And the more time that MoGoW can keep him in lane, the better it is for him, as Erlang's like, he's useless in team fights.
Okay, well, talk to me about the solo lane matchup just in general on paper in the early game. Obviously, you said Erlang Shen very good, dominant in solo lane, but he doesn't bring enough. But how is that match going to play out?
I mean, Erlang is going to win the lane. He has better clear, he has poke, but like Jing's not going to care because he can sustain with his HP 5 passive, his clear progressively gets better. And as soon as he has shoes online, it won't be a problem for him.
So it's more focused on getting Xaliea to these team fights here more often.
He needs
not.
to in mid fights. He needs to be there as often as possible, especially since Jiffy doesn't have beads. It's a free target. If you ult the Jing into the Ymir into the Susano and the Raijin, it's a free kill.
Well, we'll talk about a little bit more about team fights now, because we mentioned as well, Taco, like eLevate definitely have on paper the squad for taking objectives like Gold Fury and things. But what's the team fight situation like? Is Orbit going to be looking for a team fight scenario, or are they more than likely going to go for something to do with skirmish battles?
I think Orbit are more so going to look for trying to get the early picks, if anything, especially with that Susano Raijin. Yeah. That's a lot of burst damage that can come out from that combo itself. But another thing to note too, bringing it back to MoGoW, is that he's probably the most excited person to see that Ymir. Yeah, he's probably the most excited person to see that Ymir jungle coming out from his team, because that double Guardian means that he'll have more than enough freedom to build that full aggression attack build that we've seen him going with in pretty much every single other game that he's played so far. And I think that more than anything, that might be something that catches Orbit off guard.
Fits in his playstyle too. And Nika, you were saying that is the way you kind of have to build Erlang Shen to make him work.
It suits MoGoW so much. He's probably the most aggressive solo laner that we play against in EU.
Really?
Definitely. Yeah, he's always looking to fight you. He never wants to sit back and farm. He's, regardless of the pick, even on like the passive gods, he's always trying to fight for no reason.
Well, talk about the picks and actually engagements from these two teams. I feel eLevate have a little bit of an opportunity with the Sobek to find those plucks and things. But then when I look at Orbit, it seems a bit of situation of how they're going to really find these engagements. Where are you expecting it to come from, Nika, in terms of engage from the team of Orbit?
Probably the Susano pull out of nowhere, like in mid camps, like in the passageways around Gold Fury. If Xaliea can get to team fights, his ult. But I think most of the team fights will be counter engagements from Orbit.
And that seems to be the playstyle here, Taco, is that Orbit gone for a counter initiation lineup here with a Khepri as well, just in case things don't go right at the start of the fight.
You know what I would like to see is Susano pull into Khepri hug into the Xing 10 ultimate. Like just
so the dream comp is what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah, just the complete train of CC and then just getting the pick that way.
How hard is it to pull that off though, Nika?
I mean, I guess it's hard, but it's Orbit, the best mechanical team here. So
that's a good point.
Another point, Qvo loves to just be aggressive. He loves to separate himself and pick off the carry. And the Khepri is going to give him so much more freedom. We've seen, like in earlier games on the AO, he'd make like a risky play in between tier 2 and a Phoenix and die for it. But now there's less of a risk.
I guess that kind of plays into as well with the fact that, you know, you said Susano is probably the one to engage for this team. Khepri can ult in as well. And getting back out of danger. Well, the casters are ready. It looks like the players are too. There's WorldEdit on your screen. F-Dot, bring us back with this game.
And we're going to bring us back with this game. It's Team eLevate versus OrbitGG. And we're going to see how this one goes. And we're back into it. nulisa on that ISIS. And Tully and I exchanged a couple of words off camera. Oh, that sounded actually aggressive, like we were fighting. I wasn't fighting totally this time, I promise. But we were talking a little bit about this mid lane matchup, and I mentioned that I really enjoy the eLevate draft. I really like what they're bringing. I love Dardez and Jermain on these particular picks, etc. But it's a lot of damage for QvoFred and Lawbster. Isis, nulisa, she might get pushed around and abused by the amount of damage that Orbit's bringing.
I'm really worried for her safety at the beginning of the game. Knowing QvoFred and his tendencies to play aggressive, especially with Susano. I believe this is the first pick for Susano this whole tournament weekend, and pairing this up with a Raijin against an Isis that doesn't have Vampiric Shroud for that extra health boost could be potentially abused, already taking a lot of damage from that one ability from Lawbster.
Yeah, the lack of Vamp Shroud is a little bit curious, but we'll see how it works out. WorldEdit is going to be a good guardian, no pun intended, for the mid laner specifically. A lot of freezes, just a lot of crowd control, so if somebody does get a little bit close to nulisa, I'm sure WorldEdit can stop them in the tracks, but like I said, just a lot of burst surprise out of Lawbster. Coming into this LAN, actually, the Raijin had the most first bloods out of all gods, just because of that ability at level 2 and level 3 to really snap the Raijin on you and then Thunder Crash right into you and just cause a ton of damage. So Isis and nulisa, or nulisa, the Isis player, certainly has to keep an eye on that.
And they're doing a good job so far. Already hitting level 4. They got the right side mid Harpies alone on nulisa, and now paired up with WorldEdit, they split the left-hand side, now getting their own back right Harpies. So this should allow nulisa to hit level 5 first and make maybe an aggressive play with that circular protection.
Speaking of aggressive plays, we were just looking at the duo lane, and honestly the solo lane fits that bill as well. MoGoW versus Xaliea. These guys are guys that certainly want to fight, and then Jermain, Dardez taking across a Funballer and Trixtank. Those guys are certainly guys that want to fight, so both sandwich lanes certainly know that it's going to be very aggressive. I expect first blood on one of these sides of the map.
Saying MoGoW wants to fight is putting it very lightly. I expect him, I think that when he was born that he was trying to fight the doctor when he came out. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the action just continues in the solo lane against Xaliea. But once the levels start coming online, he's going to be able to clear very safely as a Guardian. Now it's going to be dependent on how aggressive eLevate wants to be around the 330 mark against a Xing Chen that doesn't really excel fighting around level 6 or 7.
And it's not like there's a wrath on him or anything. He's got the teleport online, so Xaliea not going to exactly be the best at contesting if there is an invade. Right now, WorldEdit just hanging out, looking for not even a gank, just going to leech some of the experience out. But you can see the pings. Orbit has committed to a large rotation out of the mid lane. And really, I love that decision to rotate over here with WorldEdit, because either you hard commit and you get the gank and you get first blood and a secondary kill, or you stop halfway through and you just pick up the fire elementals like we just see.
And they could have potentially looked for the kill, but the fact that WorldEdit wasn't level 5 at that time means they don't have that huge burst damage potential to really lock down Xaliea at this point. He's still relatively tanky with Marka the Vanguard, which would negate a lot of damage between those two characters. But now, not really much action in the solo lane. Buffs are about to respawn in 10 seconds.
Dardez taking the Jing elevator right up there to the back line. I love seeing that. Just a little bit cheeky play coming out. And speaking about cheeky, eLevate want to get involved, and they want to go for the invade right here. Nice wall, and that's really lets us separate. And usually you see the wall kind of used to keep players in. That wall was to keep players out, allowing WorldEdit and his team to successfully invade that speed buff and take it away from Orbit.
And more importantly, they forced out the ultimate from QvoFred, trying to secure his own speed buff. So now this means nulisa, she doesn't have to worry about that big important cooldown. Both WorldEdit and nulisa, they can continue to play aggressive. The blue buff has respawned on the right-hand side. MoGoW, he could potentially teleport and look for another aggressive play.
WorldEdit does the same thing he did over there by the speed buff, using the wall to keep players out and separate them from his target, going directly for those mid Harpies. WorldEdit and Dardez are looking to get aggressive, going into the left jungle. And these Harpies are about to spawn one more time. They'll be joined by nulisa, and Orbit could just relinquish them. They don't want any fight here against the two Guardians and the Isis.
Orbit don't have the respawn timers here for these mid Harpies. It's eLevate that were able to secure the first respawn of them. So that's going to force them to play more passively. Orbit needs to secure their own red buff. They're worried about the invade because they also don't have the Typhoon from QvoFred during that speed buff invade earlier on.
And I mean, this is the time where Ymir jungle is arguably scariest. When he's at this low level with just the Magi's boots and everybody just sort of has the boots along the way. Ymir brings so much damage, a freeze basing into the carpet. Hold that thought, because you want to talk about damage, a ton of it's going into Gold Fury, and eLevate are just sitting there with no idea, Tolly, they snuck it, they had no clue.
They had no idea. It was a great rotation though on the right-hand side. They're trying to put pressure onto this Guardian, but they sacrificed a Gold Fury in the process. Great recognition from Orbit. They see some members from eLevate backing off. They knew that the red buff was being contested, speed and blue as well, so the timing allowed them to make the play. The staggered speed buff respawn timers forced Orbit's hand.
It's one of my favorite things to watch in competitive Smite is the secret Gold Fury. Nobody knows, and Orbit pick it up off of, like you said, there's a lot of different scenarios that lead to that situation. It's not just eLevate, there's a lack of vision, but it's not just eLevate not knowing what's going on in the game. Orbit successfully identified a whole bunch of factors on the right side of the map that forces eLevate away from that gold.
So now finding this first early objective allows Orbit a little bit more space control, because now they don't have to worry about constantly sentry warning around this Gold Fury. They can leave it open for another 4 minutes before the Gold Fury respawns or so. So that's going to allow Orbit to focus more on middle and solo lane now if they want, leaving Funballer to farm for free.
And so right now with that Gold Fury taken out by Orbit, you can see that basically evened up the score. eLevate had themselves an 800, almost 1,000 gold lead just off of the invade and some of the other victories we saw from the relinquished midline Harpies and stuff. All these small little jungle camps wind up adding up. Orbit take that sneaky Gold Fury, and all it does is pretty much tie everything together.
But eLevate, they're still confident in their team fights right now. They're trying to position themselves around the speed buff invade, but just a little bit mistimed. We see Trixtank making the rotation, being prepared for that. Look how aggressively all the wards from eLevate are positioned.
WorldEdit finds a freeze as QvoFred walks around the corner. Walled off and flipped out. Trouble for the jungler. QvoFred gonna find his way back and safely with the Khepri resurrection should he find himself at 0. Great initiation from eLevate, but Orbit had too many tools to really deter the situation.
3 ultis used for 3 ultis. Solo laners exchanging ults of themselves. Xaliea getting poked out a little bit, but all the members from eLevate are not here to really aggress. And it's MoGoW that's always on the aggressive side. The blue buff has respawn now, so if he wants to, he could try to go for an invade.
Yeah, you know what? I liked what you said before. When he was born, MoGoW tried to fight the doctor. I think when they slapped him, he slapped him back and just said, absolutely not. Forced the doctor to cry. Right there, I love just try to get back into lane. I'm going to hit you a couple of times. I'm obviously not going to find the kill. I'm going to body block you just a little bit. I'm just here to be obnoxious.
But now it's Trixtank that's going to counter-aggress. MoGoW has nowhere to go, getting pulled back in away from his tower. First blood goes to Orbit, but in middle, nulisa taking out Lawbster.
Just a hair off the timer to get that first blood. So 500 gold bounty goes the way of Orbit. Altogether, 500 gold is the only lead we see from Orbit. But again, eLevate find their invade. First time on the right side, now on the left. And nulisa is the one that takes the kill all the way home off of the assist from the trio in mid.
They saw that Jetstream was used by QvoFred, but they can't really catch him. He has the speed buff, he has this passive to boost up that movement speed, and now it's going to be eLevate grouping up for their own buffs on the right-hand side. QvoFred, though, he's positioned to kind of spot this out. He could potentially steal this, but he's too far away.
Yeah, just not able to really get there. Unfortunately, Trixtank, well, he scuttles away. I thought he might have been caught there, but he roly-polied his way out of there. Jermain now versus Funball. The Jing versus the Ram. Both of these characters very, very important late game. Jing more for the abilities, Ram more for the basics. But what can you tell me about now? Nice and early.
Right now, it's going to be WorldEdit, though, that's getting caught out of position with Dardez and MoGoW to group up, and now the ultimate from Trixtank saving Xalia's life.
Talk about coming in the nick of time. We just saw Trixtank scuttle in the other direction. Xaliea gets caught out completely, and then somehow Trixtank able to find just enough distance to save the life of his solo laner. Hot play.
But going back into the discussion of the Hunter battles right now, Funballer seems to always be progressing towards this attack speed style boost, saving up a lot of gold to finish off that Shin size early on, which hurts his penetration, his lifesteal build, but he has the damage necessary, and he's not worried about the lifesteal when he has Trixtank playing the Khepri, which is going to get him out of jail for free.
We've seen a lot of these European hunters really forgo the lifesteal in an effort just to maximize the damage. Not always the Chinsai rush, that we see out of Funball, that we've seen out of Funball consistently here. You'll see the boots into the chin side, and then even something like a Titan's Bane usually just to increase that damage. But across the way, Jermain, he's not taking the bait. Not necessarily going with the flow and just hitting up whatever new trend there is. He's sticking to the Devo Gloves build.
And I like the different style between these hunters. That means that there is no set meta for the hunters. It all just matters on how consistent you are about landing your in-hands and the composition that you're playing around. Because right now, Funballer, he's against this double Guardian between WorldEdit and Dardez. And MoGoW, more than likely, he's going to build very tanky as well, trying to rush that high to the Urchin.
You know, I think this is one of the first times in Smite history that there are really multiple acceptable builds. We had the Unicorn build next to the crit build last year, and that was sort of the first entry. But now it's all down to the character you play, your play style, and composition.
We've also seen a Soul Eater earlier on today for a Hunter, which allowed him to win certain 1v1 exchanges as a result. So it's very important to find your own style that works for you.
Jermain's going to dash away and use the Purification, anticipating the pullback out of Qvo. Very smart play coming out of the French Hunter. And here comes the Cavalry. You see Dardez and WorldEdit in the jungle trying to make the flank, but instead turn around and they're thinking about the red buff with nulisa in tow.
Ymir and Sobek are grouped up here, trying to pick off the Trixtank on the Khepri. He's going to get ulting himself right now with Lawbster piling down the damage onto nulisa.
There's the help as Lawbster's taught back into the problem, but Dardez finds one for himself. Meanwhile, Jermain able to cut off Qvo. Qvo tried to damage Jermain and then get back to the party, and absolutely not. Jermain played the bouncer and sent Qvo back home.
The doctor came and the doctor has left the conversation right now as QvoFred is waiting to respawn for 15 more seconds, which right now eLevate, they have a little bit of a window to maybe go for some aggressive play right now with Dardez respawning in 5 seconds.
So a lot has gone on so far. 11 minutes, only 4 kills, but I feel like we've seen more action than just those 4 kills. A lot of invades, a lot of tactical play. Usually when casters say tactical play, they're just being snide and want to avoid saying a slow game. But we're actually seeing a lot of tactical play. Some of these intricate invades, the Gold Fury was the result of, I think, 3 or 4 different factors on the right side of the map. And both of these teams are really showing their intelligence here. I think Orbit kind of made a name for themselves off of individual prowess. And then eLevate yesterday was just kind of like, hey, we didn't prepare. Now we're pushing our buttons. Today's a different side of those teams that we're seeing. And I'm really enjoying getting an insight into the brains of these 10 players.
And it's only been a 12-minute game with 4 kills. Despite so low kills on the board right now, both of these teams have been aggressively positioning themselves in the other's jungle, trying to make that play, whether it was a pick onto MoGoW on the right-hand side, or whether it was an early Gold Fury that was snuck by Orbit. So overall, just all these objectives are little by little adding up.
Here's something small that I want to ask about. You see there's 2 sentry wards on the Gold Fury, and once upon a time, coming out from the same team on eLevate. And normally I just say, hey, maybe 2 people dropped it, you know, accidentally. But I've seen this more and more. Is this a specific strategy that teams go? Because that's 6 separate basic attacks that you need to really get rid of those wards. Is that a specific strategy, Tolly? Or is it just sort of luck of the draw that players are dropping wards on top of wards?
I think it's more of an accidental play than a tactic where you're trying.
Because I see it so often.
I mean, it makes sense that you're trying to get 6 attacks instead of 3, but honestly, that's a lot of gold being used instead. And now eLevate, they're trying to force these ultimates on top. The Ymir ultimate was used. Ice is still there, but it gets reset.
And QvoFred comes around the back. Gold Fury is going to be leashed. eLevate didn't have enough damage to just raw force the ultimate into the objective, so they're going to have to let it go. MoGoW's rotation, he's 1-on-5 here, Totally. It's going to be trouble for him.
He's going to be able to get the sustain off, though, and he's trapping everybody down. Dardez forcing out the Purification from Lawbster, but now he has nowhere to go.
nulisa does her best, sending everything through the wall. There's a Spirit Ball that's off the mark, but WorldEdit perfectly on it. Funball gets the double kill as he takes down WorldEdit, and now Funball going to chase down nulisa for number 3, but a great knock-up from MoGoW, and Funball falls into his own trap, knocking himself up, and that'll be that.
Jermain rolling in aggressively, forced to use the Purification. He actually was 1v2ing Trixtank and QvoFred in the process. He finds Funballer, but can he get out of the Sanctuary, buying him a little bit of time?
My man's Jermain got the shot right before the hit from Khepri. Khepri battling, life stealing. Not going to be enough as QvoFred shuts him down, and QvoFred takes MoGoW to town as well. Double kill. So many multi-kills in that team fight.
That was overall a 3-for-3 with Lawbster and Dardez now respawning. And like I was mentioning before, Jermain was actually 1v2ing both Trixtank and QvoFred in the back during that team fight, which forced out Trixtank's ultimate just to keep QvoFred alive long enough to come back into that team fight healthy to clean up Jermain.
I gotta say, you know, watching Jermain today has been just an absolute treat. Speaking to some of the players, we got to see them on screen before, talk about how Jermain is quietly one of the best hunters in the world. He's on this eLevate squad that doesn't really get a chance to show, and I think that's one of the fun things about our sort of format here in the fall split. We get to bring players like this to LAN, and we get to see what he's able to do. 1.5 pentakills. I'm not going to give him the second one, but he was able to really just pull out tons of individual play. And then right there, we got to see some of the teamwork as well.
And now WorldEdit getting caught out of position. Nowhere to go except the graveyard, having to wait 35 seconds to respawn. Now Orbit, if they really want to, they could go for this Gold Fury now.
And that would be a great play. Originally, the Gold Fury wasn't worth too much. Now, certainly a different story. Orbit just nearly getting to about 1,000 gold lead. This tier 1 tower plus a Gold Fury, that will catapult Orbit into a real tangible gold lead.
And now they're taking their time. They decided that they have enough time to get the tier 1 mid tower guaranteed, which gives them more map control. Now, this eliminates some escape routes for eLevate. Now, if there's ever a team fight in the mid lane, they don't have that tier 1 to fall back into. And now, Orbit's still going to try to go for the Gold Fury, but Jermain and Dardez spots it out, going to force a reset.
Quick little roll. Jermain gets away, and Dardez with a quick little shimmy gets away from Trixtank as well. Gold Fury going to be started. Jermain's here, does have the ultimate available. So does Dardez. So a lot of options, honestly, for eLevate to deter Orbit from really committing to this. 25% on the Gold Fury, and that's all eLevate need to do is walk towards Orbit to really get them to really pull off of it.
I don't think Orbit really wanted to do that Gold Fury anyway. I think what their plan is to try to get Trixtank to pluck somebody, and they have the damage necessary, forcing out the purification from QvoFred. Nicely done by WorldEdit.
Nice recovery, and look at MoGoW. Hanging out on that right side jungle. Beautiful pluck at a Dardez and a hot revive coming out of Trixtank. Man, if only.
It was the double blink play that we mentioned before between WorldEdit and Dardez. Forced the purification earlier on by WorldEdit, and then Dardez follows up once that expires. But luckily enough, Trixtank coming in clutch yet again, saving QvoFred's life.
eLevate going to try one more time for the Gold Fury. Last time they didn't have enough damage. They pulled the cord on their ultimates a little bit too soon. Now they going for the kills. Double freeze, double carpet, double root out of MoGoW as well. Down goes Trixtank. Remember, that ult's on cooldown. Lawbster's in trouble. He's going to shadow crash away, and Jermain's going to give chase. Turning and burning onto Funball. Agility not available. A couple of basics, and it's going to force the ultimate out.
He's going to wait.
1, 2. Oh, it's off the money. And the Sanctuary saves the life of the Hunter. But Jermain's going to join the rest of the team. Gold Fury already started.
I love the patience by both of those Hunters right there. Funballer waiting, just waiting for the Rama snipes to be delayed, and then the Rama waiting for him to land. But now it's going to be eLevate with the first Gold Fury for themselves. Lawbster's Thunder Crash is down. WorldEdit trying to slow, not on the mark with the carpet. Neither is the Spirit Ball.
Dardez is going to be off as well. The freeze is large and in charge. Lawbster in some trouble. And down he goes. Dardez evens it up at 7-all, but very quickly, Orbit takes their 7 and turns it into a 9 as Qvo and Funball combine for 2 kills.
And the sprint is going to catch up to Jermain. Lawbster sacrificing his life for 3 members from eLevate. And now heading to the right-hand side. Are they going for fire?
That would be very early. It's 18 minutes on the clock. It will be the call for Fire Giant, ladies and gentlemen. MoGoW and nulisa are alive, but they're not exactly the characters you want to stop. Here comes Erlang Shen with a hot turnaround. Nice teleport in. That's going to put Orbit off of the Fire Giant just a little bit.
There's no way that they continue on the Fire Giant with MoGoW right behind them. They're going to have to reset. He's buying so much time now that nulisa's even here. Ring around the rosies. MoGoW is making his way back to the Fire Giant. It's still at about 40% health.
It's still keeping... There it is. All right, all right. Orbit has leashed it. Xalia's got to run away from MoGoW and his little dog, too.
if they were able to do all the damage that they needed to without MoGoW having the teleport, maybe they sneak it there. But with MoGoW showing up, eLevate having... Now eLevate is going to be the ones pulling it, but it's Xaliea this time around that's going to be behind it. Can he buy enough time for the rest of his team to come back? Lawbster is really close here.
Now there's the turnaround. Xaliea is going to be focused. Grabs two, one still out of it. Here comes the rest. Beautiful pluck from Dardez. So accurate. Up to the sky goes the Hunter. One shot, two shot, but he's revived already. QvoFred gets an extra kill, putting down MoGoW.
They're trying to find more kills right now. QvoFred doesn't have an escape, possibly. Lawbster falls.
Nice shot.
We see more kills even so far. It's going to be a 2 for 2.
Nulisa, Jermain, and Dardez have absolutely run this game. They're the ones keeping eLevate into it. WorldEdit and MoGoW are there specifically for the utility. WorldEdit got eLevate out of the early game and is providing tons of crowd control and walls. MoGoW is just providing presence. Nulisa, Dardez, and Jermain have been lifted up by WorldEdit and MoGoW, and now those three are the ones doing the heavy lifting. Look at this last slides. 2-0-2, 1-3-5 on the support, and then 4-2-3. And of course, the effective damage has been incredible.
But I'm really worried about WorldEdit's level right now. He's 13 compared to QvoFred's 16. And the later this game goes, reaching level 20 on the Susano is going to be very strong for Orbit right now to find these early picks right now. He's very slippery with his kit. So if you're not able to really lock him down and get him out of this team fight early on, Orbit should have the edge just with the level disparity.
We'll see how it works out. Ymir is certainly a character that, as a Guardian, needs those levels to get that damage online. But as the game gets later and later, I think it's a little bit less about the damage and more about the consistency of the crowd control.
On the flip side, Jermain almost hitting level 20 right now. He's getting into that late game hyper form. He has the Executioner and the Wind Demon to kind of snowball and gas pedal any sort of person that might be out of position, especially if Dardez can consistently hit these blink plucks that he's been doing.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that I don't think that's a question. We've just seen it all weekend. We saw it throughout the regular season as well. Dardez has just looked very, very flashy.
Look how far back Lawbster is, afraid of the double blink play between these two big bruisery Guardians. This is like E-Honda and Zangief right now together in an epic duo.
Just coming down and smacking it. And that's what we're seeing here, honestly. Dardez is just serving everybody up like a blind waiter. He doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care what you do. He's coming for you. He's going to flip you over, and the rest of the team is going to put you right on the grill. And that's what we're seeing out of eLevate, and that's why they're so successful. This is Orbit. This is a team not just in the group that's considered #1. People are considering this team to be #1 above Energy, and eLevate have been going toe-to-toe with them for the last 22 minutes. That's something to celebrate, and Jermain certainly knows it.
And it's all about the land meta. Whenever you've been playing against each other for as long as these teams have, you're developing these sort of intricate tendencies that get spotted out, and now eLevate are kind of seeing what they can get away with, going for this double Guardian composition with the control from Nulisa, the damage from Jermain, and then just the obnoxious tendencies from MoGoW is what's keeping them still alive in the game.
And I love that little, just the little sneak on the tower. That's eLevate making sure sometimes, and Toli, I know you can attest to this, the lull in the action while teams are just sort of rotating around this fire giant, trying to figure out next fight. Sometimes you can sort of mentally check out, and you just find yourself hitting WASD, tossing out a poke. eLevate 100% mentally there. As soon as they see the opportunity, just chunk down that tower.
As the game progresses, some objectives become diminishing less significant. For example, that tier 1 tower on the right-hand side, it's like way back in the Orbit's mind. They don't really prioritize that above the Gold Fury or the Fire Giant, which allows eLevate that little bit of timing of a window to sneak that in.
And like you said, it's diminished, but at no point does that reach 0. Still a very important objective for eLevate to get. With that tower down, after a team fight, who knows? WorldEdit, unfortunately, stuck in the middle of everything. Almost thought he was down for the count, but it looks like Xaliea is going to confirm it.
Lawbster, though, taking a lot of damage in the process. Jermain trying to find the snipes, the ultimate from Trixtank, trying to keep him alive, and then reset. The timing just not there for Jermain.
We needed 1 extra second, not going to come. Jermain now trying to escape. Xaliea says no, and MoGoW trying to help his brother in need. He's going to go down for the count as well. 3 players on eLevate are toasted. Nulisa and Dardez, the only ones alive. Orbit looking for fire.
And now there's no sneaking the fire. They're going to command completing this Fire Giant objective. There's no way nulisa and Dardez can get here in time. If there could be a potential Spirit Ball max distance, but it's going to be QvoFred spotting out nulisa. Still time though. Fire Giant at about 2,000 health.
Toss it! Toss it!
Now it's just going to back off. Trixtank is trying to zone her out.
Nice turnaround on the Spirit Ball. Dardez are going to show up, but QvoFred gets the snatch, and Trixtank gets the grab. Down goes nulisa. QvoFred gets the final hit off of the assist of the support, and many players wind up on the bad side.
To nulisa's credit, that's her first death, and we were talking about the beginning of the game, how she might be struggling early game compared to this Raijin Susano combination. She has the Warlock Sash complete at 47 stacks now, and now with Fire Giant on orbit, though, it's going to be very tricky for her to find the right positioning.
That's also, in my eyes, there are different levels of deaths, right? And that's an acceptable death, I feel like. Your team is down, the Fire Giant's there. As an ISIS, I mean, the long-range Spirit Ball, it's a shot in the dark, but it is a shot. And I am a firm believer, and I think this is subjective. So if you disagree with me, good for you. I'm a firm believer that if you got a shot to steal that Fire Giant, you absolutely have to go for it. And if you die, one death, not so bad. What troubles me is when that one death turns into 2 and 3 because everybody's trying to help out their teammate.
And it's an acceptable death in my opinion as well, because nulisa respawned and there's still no objectives that Orbit are really going for except for this Gold Fury. They wouldn't have really fought into this 5-on-5 anyway, because MoGoW was too busy split pushing on the right-hand side, trying to get back these levels, because Xaliea is right now almost level 20, whereas MoGoW has been stuck at level 17 for quite a while. In fact, he even went into Chin size, and he's not as tanky now, having 4 deaths as a result.
Well, now Orbit, they're going to go ahead on the left-hand side. Tier 1 tower pretty much for free. eLevate. They're going to defend on this Tier 2 tower, however. They're down a little bit of gold, about 5K, but a bunch of that's in the pockets of Orbit. The Fire Giant, Gold Fury, and the tower on the left-hand side are all in the pockets of these players. Look at the gold in hand, about 1,000 for everybody on Orbit. So 1,000 times 5, you're looking at really just a raw 1K gold lead for Orbit. It's all about that Fire Giant that eLevate have to deal with.
And it's all about how Orbit engaged this. They're trying to find a route onto Jermain, but he's not overextending too far for the pull. Both teams having some fun with each other, staring each other down from a distance between that Tier 1 and Tier 2, throwing out some fireworks, just taunting each other for fun. They know what's at stake. They know that the Fire Giant siege is inevitable from Orbit, so it's just a waiting game right now.
nulisa spots out QvoFred. Very important for eLevate to make sure that that assassin doesn't come from around the corner and flank them. That's how you get smoked. Xalia's going to start it off, jumping towards the back line. Jermain going to immune the ultimate, so won't get grabbed. But here comes Qvo. Jermain takes to this guy, immediately cancels it. I actually really like that play. He's got to get his way to safety. Funball going to take out Dardez, and this Tier 2 tower is but a memory.
There's nothing left on the left-hand side except this Phoenix, and that's exactly where Orbit are still remaining. They're feeling confident that they can take this 5-on-4. They're not going to continue into middle for the tower instead. They're going for the bigger objective with the Phoenix.
And that's one's going to be defended a little bit more heartily, than that Tier 2. I think eLevate, like I said, I like the play of Jermain. He went up and immediately came down. He was more concerned about the recovery to defend this Phoenix. eLevate's going to put all their chips on the board. Lawbster unleashes the ultimate and combines with QvoFred to delete Jermain. Still coming down and bringing the rain. Funball finds the kill on the WorldEdit. You see Xaliea retreating to the back along with the Hugbug, but MoGoW front and center watching as he and his Phoenix fall down. Funball double kill.
3 members dead of eLevate. The left side Phoenix falls, going into Tier 2 mid. They're probably sitting on a lot of golden hand after these objectives. So we're going to see them probably back after this next objective, trying to get their late game items online, because they're still sitting at about 64,000 gold.
Yeah, I mean, gold in hand, you're thinking about like probably 1,500 to 2,000. There it is on screen. Yeah, about 2K each player. They had about 1,100 going into that left side, and then the final siege pushes them up another 1,000 per. Wow. And then when you look at the gold as far as the whole team is concerned, Orbit's up 10K. This right side tower is going to bring them up another 1,500, and they're going to choose where they want to go. Do they push forward, or do they continue to back? They're going to back everybody a little bit hurt, in need of some triage. Trixtank certainly wants to go home, so he'll hit that B button. and go back to base.
With Fire Giant respawning in 35 seconds, finishing off that Masamune right now for QvoFred, selling also his Bummer's Mask, completing that Brawler's Beatstick. He's at full build right now, and any target he really selects at this point is more than likely going to get deleted.
I mean, that's a lot of power. You've got pretty much max CDR, some good old-fashioned penetration in the Titan's Bane, and then just more power on top of it with the Masamune and the Brawler's Beatstick. So yeah, that's a spicy build.
It's a very spicy build. Trying to lock down these Guardians that are going to have more health than him.
Spicy, man. Ooh.
We haven't seen this item being picked up for a while up until Atorexia brought it out earlier on in this split when hunters were kind of figuring out what was the correct builds that they wanted to really elect to go for. But now it's Orbit in the driver's seat. They have about 11,000 gold lead. They got the left side Phoenix, and Fire Giant has respawned. So now they have the vision control that they really need. Nobody from eLevate really want to contest this one.
Nah, I mean, not at all. This one's a little bit too problematic. I don't want to see the mid laner trade their life this time around. Before, it was a shot in the dark. Now, this one's just going the way to Orbit. You can see the split push coming out. Jermain going to go ahead and push on the left-hand side, trying to get at least a tier 1 tower. That Fire Giant's going to go down, and Orbit are going to come down the right side lane like a barrel of monkeys and look for that Phoenix.
They really need to play off of the engage from QvoFred and try to shut him down whenever possible. It's WorldEdit, though, waiting, spotting out Xaliea. He's going to have to back off. Nice little spirit ball, though, to contest Xaliea, forcing him to back off.
We're seeing that a lot out of eLevate, and if you want to find a positive note, I think that's it. I love their teamwork. MoGoW saving the life of nulisa. Nulisa right there saving the life of WorldEdit. You see a lot of those 1-2 punches, very important. But here comes Orbit, just not even wasting a minute of time, going right for the dive. Xalia's getting smoked, Xalia's surrounded, and he's saved out by his support again. Trixtank with the uncharacteristic support-esque play. Loving how Trixtank has been able to adapt, adjust, and honestly mature his gameplay.
That's 2 ultimates being used by Orbit between Xaliea and Trixtank. They still have 3 more to go. There's no circle protection or the Sobek ultimate for eLevate to really defend this one. Jermain gonna get rooted out, but there's no real follow-up. Trixtank, he's getting caught along the wall. Lawbster using his ultimate, but WorldEdit's waiting.
And there's the ultimates out of one mage for another. You can see Shadow Nightmare trying to make it happen through the wall, but he can't, and he won't. Right side Phoenix still alive. QvoFred gets the kill, and still the Phoenix remains. eLevate with a fantastic defensive set. They lose a member of their squadron, but they protect the important objective.
But it's so low that they're going to go again for round number 2 with Dardez having to back off and WorldEdit dead. It's going to be a 5-on-3. Getting pulled back in is Jermain, taking a little bit of poke. Finally finding that right side Phoenix that they wanted to. Orbit walk away with a small victory.
Yeah, just a couple of basics needed to take that one out, but the left side Phoenix has respawned. It's a very important point for eLevate. Orbit going to go ahead and try to push onto the mid lane this time around. No ultimates except for Xalia's. His was used first, so his comes up first as well. Nice stun onto the soul laner out of nulisa, but very quickly that mid lane tower goes down. I suspect the same will happen to the left.
The left side Phoenix has respawned. It's at half health, but Dardez getting deleted yet again. QvoFred's build is just so problematic for all these tanks. nulisa getting body blocked. One in hand for QvoFred to get a double.
And that might be the ball game, folks. Orbit, so much damage. Jermain, the last hope, is eliminated. Triple kill, 1 for the support. There's a single man alive. It's a Ymir. And a brief reprieve as Orbit take a step back, waiting for their minions. And here they come, barreling it down. Ladies and gentlemen, Orbit take game 1.
It's going to be a nice little victory for Orbit, which is very important right now because this group is so close. Now, Orbit, they're sitting at 8 points. They need to find another win to get the sweep.
And that's certainly what they're going to look for at Atoli. eLevate have had a hell of a day today, but it's certainly not going to be enough at the moment to come against Orbit. I was very excited to see 22 minutes of eLevate keeping it nice and even before Orbit was able to crack this one open. Hindu, Taco, and Nico, why don't you tell us what you think?
thing I want to say about that set overall is QvoFred now, yesterday he got himself 20 kills. Today he's on 18 kills. He's on, I believe, ridiculous. Overall there is something like 107 kills, more than 107 I guess, above the 100 kill mark already for the split. Not an easy task to get, Taco.
No, definitely not easy at all. But Qvo, like we pointed out before the game even began, he is a huge factor as far as Orbit's team fight is concerned. He's really big on helping set up Lawbster, I think, in that mid lane, especially on a god like Susano. That really gives him the mobility that he enjoys having to go and dive into that back line like we discussed earlier during the picks and bans. And just every single time, he's just so precise with whatever god he decides to pick up. And this Susano, I think it's something that eLevate need to take away from him. He just has too much mobility, and it's too much setup for his team, and he just plays off of it excellently.
It's Ao and Susano are the most dangerous gods to put on Givo. Because if you give him a hyper carry, he's going to win the game on his own.
I was going to say, you mentioned as well, like, they played to their style there, Orbit. They played to what their strength was, and that was allowing, you know, Trix to sit at the back.
Yeah, and let Qvo just go in constantly, Xaliea to go in and just pressure the backline, and eLevate couldn't handle it.
That touched me a little bit. You were mentioning during the game as well, Nika, that you didn't like the 2 blinks that eLevate brought out there as well. How come?
So, if you have a blink on Sobek, you have to make use of it. But there's no point getting on Ymir as well, because you don't need the 2 forms of initiation. And the blink on Sobek is good for early and mid game. But in late game, we saw multiple times he would blink in, try and pull, and die instantly.
What would you rather have seen then instead of those 2 blinks?
Potentially a Sunder against Xaliea would have eliminated him as a tanky force.
Tell us about that Sunder then, because like you guys run the Sunder
Sunder's OP.
More. And why is it you run it?
Why not? You just kill the tanky target so easily.
It was more to explain it in more detail than why not? You know,
I can't leak too much. It's just OP. NA knows it's OP. You need to follow the trend.
Well, at least you guys are anyway. I mean, that game wasn't clean though, Taco, was it? I mean, Orbit didn't get off to a great start overall there. eLevate did the same thing they do every time, get off to a great lead.
Yeah, I think Orbit at the start of the game probably weren't too happy with the performance. You could tell by the way that eLevate was keeping that game pretty even. If not, they even had like a slight lead for a good duration. And I don't think that Orbit felt super comfortable with that. And that's when you could really see QVO really starting to turn it up a gear. And he just kept bringing that pressure just nonstop until eventually it just started to whittle away at the little bit of a lead and like evenness that game did have. And then eventually, you know, eLevate just couldn't withstand.
I agree. Nika, what did you think? Obviously, overall, what was the real turning point in that game for you?
There was a fight around Gold Fury where eLevate... Actually, no, it was the FG.
The FG goals.
Orbit pulled it. eLevate disrupted it, then eLevate took it again, which was a huge mistake. They blew Isosol to try and kill Xaliea, it messed up, and then the counter engagement led to like a 4-for-0.
And then we saw some crazy engagements in the mid lane as well.
Mid lane, that was ridiculous. Like, eLevate made an incredible fight. It was like 3-for-0, Gold Fury. It looked like they were going to take mid tower, take like the game completely. And then they just overextend, QVO comes back, gets a triple, and he's fed, it's over.